that's not normal, because normally if I'm tired, it's like because I'm sleepy, but there's a difference between tired and fatigue. And what I felt was like a wompy feeling, like I was gonna like pass out or something like that. It felt like I said, it felt like I was gonna faint, except no throwing up or anything like that, no foaming at the mouth yet. But I felt weak, and it didn't feel good for me. I'll never forget. It started on like a Monday, and my symptoms were pretty simple. I had the high levels of fatigue. Um, I felt like my body was slowly giving out on me, going into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I had a fever, and the fever wasn't pulsating. It was nothing was hurting, but I felt a fever coming on with the fatigue. And then I didn't feel nauseous at first, because while I was at school, normally I'm always feeling 100%. And when I'm around my students, I feel like 120, 150 when I'm teaching, because, I have to have energy for them. And I'm known for being an energetic, funny teacher. So by the time I got around my students, the symptoms got away a little bit, but once the class ended, I was back to feeling like wonky. And by like I said, it started on a Monday. Around a Thursday, Friday, I was starting to really feel weak and out of commission, and it was like I could barely walk. And I remember talking to a colleague of mine within the building, and they were talking about coronavirus. And, I remember they were selling, there was like an Asian club in the school that was selling like Asian snacks. And then these jokes were going around about coronavirus. And, a lot of people were concerned about it. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that has to do with me. And then the school started putting up sanitizers around the building. And I'm a health teacher. So, I was researching coronavirus, and it said pretty much all you have to do is wash your hands, put your hands over your mouth. These are basic things that I teach my fifth graders. And, it helped me teach them about fatigue again, not fatigue, but teach them about cleanliness, teach them about hygiene, because it was so funny. We were just doing a lesson on hygiene and how people can be nasty. But when it got to Friday, if I can be honest with you, on a scale from 1 to 100, I'll ask you guys to do this for me. This is my interactive thing. If you can type it in the chat, 100 being 100% healthy, and 1 being no, not feeling good. And I already told you by Friday, I was already feeling away. On a scale from 1 to 100, how do you think I felt? 1 being the worst, 100 being the best. And I said by Friday, I was out of commission. By Friday, I was done. What do you think? On a scale from 1 to 100, I'll give you like 5 more seconds. 1 to 100, how do you think I felt? 100% being 100% healthy, but Friday I was out of commission. By Friday, on a scale from 1 to 100, I'll give you 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds. 5 more seconds to take a guess. Let me see what's in this chat. 15, 5. Cool. On a scale from 1 to 100, I felt like 32%. And that's not good for me. The bad for me is 50. 50 is bad for me, because normally any day I feel 90 to 100. I'm always taking my supplements. I take B12. I have my hemp oils. I have my essential oils, my peppermints. I take my multivitamins. I work out. So for me to feel like I'm at 32%, that's not good at all. So and I remember a teacher telling me, she was like, well, if you don't feel good, like go home. And I was planning so many projects that week that I could not go home. Like, a teacher couldn't take over for me, because I had made a promise to my T1s, for example, that we were going to play an interactive computer game involving vaping. And I couldn't leave that class, because I had the app developed and all that stuff, and the app was ready to go for that classroom. But anyway, that's how it went. So I said Friday, if I can make it till Friday, I said by Saturday, I'm going to urgent care. Not the hospital, but I'm going to urgent care, because I think I may have pneumonia. I even talked with another teacher. I said, I think I have pneumonia. It may not be anything serious. Her and I were sitting together. She said, do you think it's coronavirus? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't have no coronavirus. I was like, come on now. Like, everybody's tripping. Like, I'll be fine. I'll just go and get me some antibiotics, and I should be back to normal by Monday. So when I went into urgent care, everybody had masks on, and it was pretty hush hush. But by the time I got to urgent care, I couldn't walk down the street. For me to walk down the street, it took me like 30 minutes. Like I had to leave my house an hour and a half in advance to get on the train. And I moonlight for another job. I moonlight with the Broadway shows, so I usher and do bag check and security for them. So I had agreed to work that weekend to do the Broadway shows and get them going. And even at work, I had to like lie down because I was working Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with Laurie Metcalf. And I was like, okay, I'm going to urgent care. So I got to urgent care. They tested me for all this stuff. And then the doctor was like, yeah. He was like, we gave you a blood test. We looked at your stuff and you have pneumonia. And I don't know if you know what pneumonia is, but it deals with your bronchial tube. So it's something that gets in your air sac. And if you're looking at my cam, it's pretty much, it causes an inconvenience where it blocks air. So like where my hands are going like this, it blocks and it makes everything extremely inconvenient. So even breathing sometimes can become a task. And then your phlegm comes out yellow when you cough. It's like not cool at all. But I figured it was pneumonia. But the doctor then told me, he was like, hey, since you have pneumonia, he said, there's a new thing we have to do as a hospital. Anybody that has pneumonia, we cannot do a chest x-ray for them here in the hospital. We have to, here in the urgent care, we actually have to send them to the hospital because we starting to notice a trend where people that have pneumonia, they have coronavirus. So with the pneumonia, they sent me to the hospital, and this is what happened with the pneumonia thing. That's the chest x-ray of someone that has pneumonia on your right-hand side, and that led me to the hospital. But this is the chest x-ray of someone who has no sickness, nothing going on. It's clear, it's clean. Pneumonia is to the right, clear and clean is to the left. And the next slide that I'm going to show is an x-ray of someone that has coronavirus. So when I got to urgent care, I came with my paperwork and they said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I think I have pneumonia. And they said, okay, cool. And the nurses were dressed normal. The hospital, it was kind of busy, but kind of not busy. Everything was super chill. And they were like, okay, they took my information. They were like, okay, just come in the waiting room. We'll give you antibiotics. We'll get you going. And they took a chest x-ray for me. And I was fine. They gave me my antibiotics and the doctor came in the room. She was so nice. She was like, hey, you're going to go home within the next hour. They told me, call off work, don't work. I was going to work a Broadway show that Saturday matinee. And she was like, they were like, don't go to work. You need to relax. You need to sit down somewhere. And I was like, okay, cool. Laying down and I thought I was fine. And then somebody else came back in the room. They were like, hey, we need to get a second chest x-ray from you. We need to see what's going on with your body because something was abnormal. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong with that chest x-ray and we just want to check it again. So I had to go in there with my IV bag and go get a second chest x-ray, an in-depth one. And that's when things started to change because that was someone with coronavirus. The one to the right was how my chest x-ray came out. And within the matter of seconds, they put me back in the room and got that second chest x-ray, and all I could hear was people screaming. People just started screaming. People were running, and then they came in my room. They slammed the door to my room, and I was like, well, what's going on? Like, why is this happening? Like, nobody was even talking to me, and I stayed in that room that they had me in for almost like 40 minutes. I was in that room for 40 minutes, and I was like, oh God, like what's going on? And people were like panicking, like screaming and running. And it was a full waiting room, and all I could hear was people running and going places. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And within the fraction of a second, like I said, my nurses looked normal. They were fine. And my nurses went from that to looking exactly like this. They came in my room looking like that, and they went to my room looking exactly like this. And I was like, why is everybody wearing trash bags? Why does everybody they were looking like Transformers. It was like overnight, they just changed clothes within, and it was just like, okay, you guys look like a bunch of Decepticons, like robots in the sky, more than meets the eye. And they took me out of the room that I was in, and when I walked out of the room, I'll never forget it. The hospital was completely clear. It was like it was deserted. And and I said the hospital looked normal when I first got there. Now they had everything wrapped up in plastic. They had the doctors wrapped up in plastic. And I was like, what is happening? They were pushing me out of the room. And then I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, this panic is about me. They're doing this stuff because of me. And I was like dressed in regular clothes. And I was like, the nurses were like, did they tell you what's going on? And I was like, no, they didn't tell me what's going on. And they rushed me to another room. And within that second, they rushed me to another room. The doctors like stayed away from me like I had the plague, and everything was deserted. Then they locked me in a room under quarantine within the hospital. And just like that, it was game over. I was in a controlled space. And then nobody could come in my room. I had to talk to the doctors through a phone in the room. And I was like, can somebody tell me what in the hell is happening right now? You guys told me I was going home. You gave me antibiotics. You said I have pneumonia, and now you've locked me in a room. And that was around 11 o'clock when they did that. I got to urgent care around 8. I got to the hospital around 9:30, and I was in quarantine around 11 o'clock. And I was like, so what's going on? And the doctors told me, we don't know what's going on. We don't have an idea of what's going on. We don't have any answers for you. The only thing that we know is you're showing the same symptoms as someone that has coronavirus. And I was like, and he was like, but we don't have any answers for you. We don't know what we're doing. And I said, you don't know what you're doing? And he was like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. He goes, you're initially the first person that has come here with these serious symptoms. He said, we've had people here with symptoms, but he goes, we haven't had symptoms like this abnormal form of pneumonia. He said, we're doing this as a precaution. He goes, well, we don't know what we're doing. We're figuring this out just like you are. And I was like, but you know enough to lock me in a room? So just as soon as they started talking to me, then it got really weird. Then the doctors started turning into the detectives. They all of a sudden wanted to know who I was, where I'm from. They were asking questions to imply, was I an American citizen? Do I travel internationally? And they're like, who do you know? Who knows you? Well, how do you think you got this form of pneumonia? What do you think you're doing here? And they were basically like putting me against the wall, like being detectives, but they were making me feel like I was on a freaking episode of Law and Order. Like I was a criminal for getting, apparently sick, but it was my fault because I brought this on myself. And something within my spirit told me, and I don't know if you guys know this, but when coronavirus first came on the scene, and it's still happening within New York, but a lot of people are using it as a means to be xenophobic, to be racist. And I showed this meme to a class of mine, to 3 of my classes, because we were talking about healthcare, and it's something simple. It's a Disney meme that features all the Disney princesses, but in particular it's saying, sorry Mulan, but we never know. And everyone's wearing a mask but Mulan, and even though Jasmine is also Asian, even though she's Indian, they're Asian too, but it was xenophobia specifically against Asian, anybody that was Korean or Japanese or Chinese, and I was like, in the hospital, they were like, yes, are you international? And I remember hearing it in my spirit, thank God for prayer. And it was like my spirit just gave me this advice. It was like, do not tell them you work for an international school. Do not tell them that, because they're going to use this as a means to get to the international school. They're going to use this as a means to get to those people, because there were even stories online where people were trapped on cruise ships for like 2 months, and they were supposed to be on a week trip. And the trip turned into 2 months, and they did not allow them to go home. They were basically using mild forms of martial law against people, and people's houses were left unattended. And I was like, I have to basically fall on the sword for the school. And I threw Broadway under the bus. I said, I work for Broadway shows. I probably got it from that. And then I started really thinking, and I was like, I'm a New Yorker. I travel. I said, I could have gotten this on the subway. I could have come in contact with anybody. I could have walked down 34th Street. I mean, I could have run into someone from Israel at my bodega. In 34th Street, you can run into someone from Pakistan or the Netherlands. I mean, New York is a melting pot. And the doctor started laughing. But it was like they were using it as a means to find out and call people and call cops. And then there were a lot of politicians that were using it as a means of being nasty to people. So it was like within that situation, even though I wasn't diagnosed with coronavirus yet, it was like I had to think on my toes. They were basically trying to blame me for being sick and then figure out if I was international and then just be rude. It was just crazy. Then they locked me up. So after that, they let me go after 16 hours. I was spent 16 hours under quarantine in the hospital, and I was there from 11 till almost 6 o'clock in the morning. My friend had to come get me and send me an Uber, and I remember they gave me medicine to take home. They gave me 2 antibiotics and ibuprofen, and what it all boiled down to was the antibiotics. Those are the 2 things on the side, but the ibuprofen ended up turning into poison for my body because, like I said, they were figuring out how to get through coronavirus. You know, the only thing they knew was to be xenophobic. The only thing they knew was to incorporate martial law and to be whistleblowers on people. But the actual medicine of it, the actual care of it, a lot of people still don't know, but they were figuring out and they didn't know. And I was the first patient they ever had. So the ibuprofen turned out to be poison for my body. And they just found out maybe a month ago that you cannot take ibuprofen if you have symptoms of coronavirus because ibuprofen actually makes the disease worse. So while I was home, they were like, well, they gave me the test for coronavirus, and then they were like, we'll tell you if we have coronavirus or not. And I actually had to pursue them to get my results because of the fact that I was being tested for coronavirus. I had to text this school. I had to let my supervisors know because you automatically should let people know the moment you contract the disease, especially if you work with a lot of people. I had to be responsible and let my supervisor know, but then I had to let Broadway know. The union got in contact with me. And within 2 days, I had to pursue them to get my results. And the guy told me on the phone, you're tested positive for coronavirus. And I'll never forget that. Of all the people that you could say was gonna get this disease or this thing that I heard about, this thing that was being made a joke of in the school, I'll never forget I was subbing an M2 class, not an M2, but a T2 class. And somebody wrote on the board, press this circle if you wanna catch coronavirus. Like it was such hype. And here I am, of all the people that could get it, me being healthy, me being a health teacher, telling people, wash your hands, be healthy, don't be nasty, because how this disease spreads is through people being nasty, not having etiquette. And here I am with it. So that's a picture of me being admitted after 4 days of being in the hospital because a friend of mine wanted to see. And here's also a list of my medication. They gave me azithromycin, that's an antibiotic, cefpodoxime, that's another antibiotic. And the third one is ibuprofen. And if you see, they gave me 800 milligrams of it. And they only gave me half of the milligrams of that for my antibiotics. So the ibuprofen was basically killing me softly because I had to take it take a pill every 8 hours. So I was basically killing myself. So by that day, I literally showed up in the hospital to pass out and they admitted me. And that's when all hell broke loose. I had to text everyone, and it pretty much was like how you see with Cardi B when she said, coronavirus. I had to basically text everybody. It was like catching a sexually transmitted disease or even having AIDS. Like I had to contact anybody that I was that was in the proximity of me, anybody that I was in cohorts with that had seen me that week. And thank God that week I was like mad chill, like I only showed up for classes and stuff like that. But anyway, my symptoms after I got coronavirus went to this. Not only did I have the nauseousness and the fatigue, but then to add to that, I had a loss of my taste buds out of nowhere. The idea of eating food made me want to throw up. I didn't want to eat food. And I'll never forget when I was in the hospital, I told them, dude, just feed me through a feeding tube. And for me to say feed me through a feeding tube, that's real. That's no joking around. That's like real. That's like I'm down to my last. Like if that's it for me. It was horrible. I told them to feed me through a feeding tube because food made me want to throw up, to the point where my body started rejecting food and my stomach started pumping itself. My immune system started shutting down. And it's pretty much like our government did a couple years ago. They just shut down with no remorse. My body was shutting down with no remorse. My body was turning against itself. I felt like I didn't know who I was. My fever went to pulsating headaches, to the point where it started pulsing down the side of my head, and my fevers were going up to 103, 104. Like I didn't know whether I was going or coming. I wanted to pass out. And forget a whooping cough. I had a really, really bad whooping cough. It was horrible. And then I also want you to pay attention to this article, because if you type this in within Google, New York Times, Usher on Broadway, coronavirus. And like I said, I had to tell my union, I told my union, I was like, hey, I tested positive for coronavirus. And I just became the sacrificial lamb, because I was pretty much the first person that everyone knew that had coronavirus. And they wrote an article about me, and how I found out they wrote the article was within me being admitted to the hospital. I found out the same day, and my friend sent me a text message going, hey dude, like, did you see the paper? And I was like, heck no, I didn't see the paper. I'm like, I'm like in the hospital, like I'm sick right now, like leave me alone. He was like, no, dude, you're in the paper. And I was like, I'm in the paper. And then my blood pressure went up. It went through the roof. My heart started pulsating. They had to like calm me down on top of the symptoms that I had. And if you look at the article, I made it in the New York Times. This whole article is about me. It says the employee worked in recent days at Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Six, which is Six the Musical, prompting a scramble to inform the public and clean the theaters. And if you read the article, they were basically making it seem like I was the bad guy. Like I showed up to work knowing I had it, and then I was intentionally trying to infect patients. And I look at that article today and I just laugh about it. But it was a hard pill to swallow, because then even the school, they were like, can we use your name in a letter to inform people, you know, to let them know. And then it was just like, well, I mean, if people knowing about me, it's helping people, then it was like I had to take many L's on this. I had to take many lessons in patience on this. And then I found out the New York Post wrote an article, and there were other newspapers that went along with it, because again, I was the sacrificial lamb. I was the first person that everyone knew that had coronavirus. And it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm in the paper. Like, how do I make it in the New York Times? And now my friends laugh about it now. They said you basically shut down Broadway, because when Broadway shut down to clean, they basically used that to shut down Broadway inevitably. But anyway, I'll move on. It was just, even thinking about it. But anyway, after coronavirus, after getting well in the hospital, you know, I had to fight through it, and I had to focus. I tell my kids, having 20/20 vision, I did an assignment where we, when they became 20/20, I sat down, I told all my classes to write down your hopes and dreams. What do you see yourself doing in 2020? And then from now till 10 years from now, like if you were to press a button and see yourself in 2029 or 2030, what would you want to see yourself doing, you know? And I said, you have to focus no matter the chaos. And I had to practice what I preached in the hospital. And then the outpouring of love, the emails that came to me from students, from parents, you know, that got me through. But it was tough, because again, I had to be my own best advocate. And pretty much it just hit me when I got out of it that I was on my deathbed. Like, I would have either ended up in an insane asylum or on my deathbed, because there was so much embarrassment. There was so much things that just happened because I was there. There was just so much, including that newspaper, including having to tell people I had coronavirus. But anyway, with this thing that happened, with this pandemic, with the devastation, it's unearthing truths. And there's 100% lies caught that's in the public eye, and then there's 60% foolishness. And I just want to get into the medium of the two of them, the lies that are caught in the public eye and the foolishness. And I just want to play a quick game with you guys, and this will end my slide. Name this celebrity. Can anybody tell me who this is? You can speak in the mic if you want, or you can type it in the chat. Who is this celebrity?
Kylie Jenner.
This is Kylie Jenner. And the reason why I have her as my example of unearthing truths, 60% foolishness, 100% lies, because I want to compare it to this picture right here. This is Kylie Jenner. This is the same person. And this picture was taken maybe a week ago. And her and her family are often accused of cultural appropriation. They're often accused of appropriating, especially Black culture, and they're accused of darkening their skin to appear hip and to, again, appropriate things. And they often deny. And all of a sudden with coronavirus, they can't get their hands on makeup. makeup artists and they can't tan the way that they want to. And with this picture alone, it's unearthing a serious, serious, inevitable truth that no one wants to admit, but they're going to have to admit. This is the last professional picture that Kylie Jenner took before COVID-19, before the pandemic happened. And I want you to pay attention to this picture and pay attention to the picture that I just showed you before, where she was just outside grabbing a bag of chips, and their family often deny. You're making this up. We don't steal from cultures. We're not darkening our skin. We're not doing this. This is our natural skin tone. We only use a little makeup. And just certain truths such as this. And then it leads me into America, the idea of America and the lies that America has told people. First, a lie that's been exposed. When they say America can't do universal health care. And right now, anyone with COVID-19, like symptoms, they get taken care of in the hospital for free. Your symptoms, if you have COVID-19 symptoms, because of it being a pandemic, it's all taken care of. It's on America's tab. And it's exposing the lie that we can't have a form of universal health care, because essentially they're using respirators, because they had to put me on a respirator to help me breathe. They're using so much medication and so many teams and so many doctors that have to come on the scene because of this. And somehow the bills are getting paid. The second lie that's being exposed is that no one can work from home. Oftentimes, I've been hearing that since I was a child. You heard so many corporations saying, no, we can't be remote. We can't do this. You can't work from home. I remember there was a lady that needed to take off time for her parents because one of her parents was sick and she needed childcare. She was like, I can essentially do my job from home. And her job made her choose between her parent and her child, or the job. And she chose the job, and unfortunately the parent ended up getting sick and they didn't live. But it goes back to the lie that no one can work from home. And companies, because of the pandemic, because everyone's not playing that stuff and they're not going outside and risking it all, companies are forced to fold, and they're first to do this, and they figured out a way. You can order anything online right now, and now there are companies that are not supposed to be remote, but all of a sudden they can be remote, and it exposes the lie, and it's effective. And the third lie, another main lie, well, the fourth one, because I exposed Kylie, but the fourth one is the idea of welfare. When they tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and minorities are the ones that use welfare all the time, and they take advantage of the system, and they don't need it, especially with an asterisk on Black people. They use that lie to scare people into an idea of certain things and to make people vote a certain way and do things. And the lies being exposed because 60 to 70% of Americans right now are on a form of welfare. They are applying for unemployment, applying for small business loans. They're applying and going to food banks. Food banks are losing food and all this stuff by the rounds. There are millionaires actually applying for welfare because the way that they get money is through capitalism, and it's exposing them. It's proving a truth in terms of that. And it's just amazing how all of a sudden now we can do right in terms of society. All of a sudden, all these things can happen now. And now because of COVID-19, because of the system, now we're learning that these lies are actually something that we didn't necessarily have to believe. We're learning the people that are telling the truth, and it's forcing, because of the capitalism, because we have so many people that are selfish and for themselves, and that's in and out of office, it's forcing a fork in the road to happen. And it's like literally, you can either choose to be the victim or choose the victory in your situation. There is no in between. You either are going to see yourself under quarantine as you can be bored and be unhappy, or you can see your quarantine as a fortress of solitude and start learning new activities, start learning a second language and getting yourself going. But it's a lot of things being unearthed because of this. But again, it was a wild ride for me because I didn't get COVID-19 coronavirus. I didn't get that out of my system until maybe a month after I got it. And even the nurse, I'm still in contact with the nurse that was with me in the hospital. He asked me, he was like, he ended up catching coronavirus. I was one of his first patients, and his symptoms only lasted a week. But apparently I caught the worst version of coronavirus. it took a whole month, and it ended with a cough, and then they ended up in the end kicking me out of the hospital. They only let me stay for 5 days, and once my symptoms went away and I only had the bad whooping cough, they tried to kick me out of the hospital and send me out, and I basically had to think on my toes. So now I'm doing quarantine in a remote location because I couldn't go back home because I live with older people. And when coronavirus first came on the scene, they said the elderly were susceptible to the disease. But anyway, that's my experience with COVID-19. That's what happened to me. It's something that will follow me for the rest of my life. And we had a seminar with Scott Friedman. He was someone that caught AIDS, and he's had it for about 30 years now. And he was like, anyone that has coronavirus, they line right up with my feelings and the feeling of someone that has AIDS, because you're pretty much catching something that can essentially make you terminally ill. And the same feelings that you have when you catch it are the same things that someone with a disease or somewhat the same feelings that they go through when someone realizes they caught cancer of some sort. It's the same thing, but the only thing is it can be a temporary pass. And I thank God that mine was a temporary pass, and that I'm able to stand before people and tell them my story, because it could just as easily could have been my deathbed, but then my focus, because if I would have focused on the news, if I would have focused on the negativity, I wouldn't have made it. Because one of my lowest points was turning on the television and hearing Donald Trump actually say, this isn't real. It's something that was made up. And I remember standing there with my arms up, full of IVs, breathing through my nose, and just hearing that. And the way my heart just sank, and it was just like, but it is real. I have it. Like, I like cried, and then I was like, you know what? I got to focus on the positive. So I turned off the news and just started watching SpongeBob SquarePants, Friends, Nickelodeon, Raven's Home, Disney. I can't take it because I can't do it. I can't listen to BS. It's just, that's what coronavirus made me really get in the forefront. I can't stand to be in the room with BS anymore. I will not take it anymore. I'm not hearing rhetoric. I'm not hearing anybody talk that stuff. If you are negative, if you are intentionally hurting people, if you're doing anything to like kill my vibe, you are gone. You are out. It's almost like a Zoom meeting. I will remove you from my life. I don't have time for it anymore. Like I'm not taking it anymore, and I'm not hearing anything like it's a vote or this is my right, or I'm not hearing anything like that. I shuts it down. When I tell you I shut it down now with what I've been through, I'm not doing it anymore. Anyway, that's essentially my speech and what I had to say, and I'm just opening up the floor for questions or comments or anything that you guys want to say. If all that I ask is you please take it one at a time, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. I'm here for you guys, and I'm an open book, even though some of the pages are glued together. I'm an open book, but talk to me if you have a question about anything, if you have a comment or a concern. This is your time to hash it out, because in the end, my heart goes out to each and every one of you guys in here, because just like things are getting snatched away because of capitalism, because of people being jerks, your senior year, I mean, come on. There are people that you won't know how a prom feels. And that sucks, you know what I'm saying? Your graduation, if it comes in the fall, if they decide to do that, but essentially there's some people that have to do their graduation through a Zoom meeting. And it's just like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? But even with that, you gotta find the victory in your situation, because I have friends that are getting together right now. Her daughter's losing her prom. My friend, her daughter's losing her prom, and she's making a prom right there at her house. Once the ban is lifted and all this stuff around the summertime and things kick up, she's holding a prom the mom's like, I'm not doing this. I'm holding a prom at my house, and we just gonna party here at my house. I'm gonna get some lanterns. You guys show up in your prom gear, and we just gonna turn up. You know what I'm saying? You gotta find joy within the situation. And okay, yeah, the graduation was taken away, but in the same sense, you'll graduate more. But the key thing is life. You got to make this situation work for you, because even with the hospital, again, if I focused on Trump, if I focused on the negativity, if I focused on the rhetoric, if I focused on people, if I focused on those newspapers, I wouldn't have found joy, because even after this, I went viral. There are things that came to me because of coronavirus. Like I made a video in the hospital, and the video went viral. of all the things to go viral for, I thought I would go viral for a TikTok or something, or all the crazy things that I've done. I went viral because of this virus, you know what I'm saying? And even now, Broadway's applauding me because apparently they applauded me as the whistleblower that told the truth, because they were claiming that people were showing up to work on Broadway that had coronavirus and they knew they had it, but they were so focused on getting that money, getting that check, that they didn't want to tell. So they were exposing people in the cast of Moulin Rouge, in the cast of Hamilton, people that were showing up in the front of the house that were infecting people. And again, when I found out that I was being tested, I was like, Cardi B, I was like, coronavirus, corona. I told everybody. And they were like, thank you for telling the truth, because they said Broadway should have shut down a month ago. But they said, because of you, now people are telling the truth. But unfortunately, you gotta turn up on certain people. Anyway, I'll open the floor for questions, comments, or concerns. Vera, is that okay if I open it up for questions? Is that cool with you? Is that okay? Did anybody have any questions or comments for me in terms of this or whatever? Don't all jump at me at once. Oh, I see Michelle. Hey, Michelle, glad to see you walk in the room. How are you? Good to see you. Any questions? You can turn off your mic and just say it. You don't have to raise your hand. Just talk to me. This is a convo. Y'all almost grown. Come
on. First off, I'm sorry that this happened to you, and I'm glad you're fine now, I hope. But my question was, how was the recovery process? Like, how did you manage to slowly get back into your, like, feeling better and having less fatigue and stuff?
Not listening to the doctors. Because the doctors literally were sitting there in the office and they were like, we don't know what we're doing. They literally looked at me in my face, they locked me up in a room and they were like, hi, we don't know what we're doing. And like, even my screen's like flaring now. They were like, we don't know what we're doing. And I was like, but you just locked me, but you know enough to lock me up? Like, you don't know what you're doing, but you know enough to lock me up. And I'll never forget the day that I left. Dr. Ferris, I'll never forget her. She's even stopped coming in the room to check on me. She just talked to me through the phone. And she was like, I'm thinking about sending you home. And I'm like, but Dr. Ferris, I still have this whooping cough. Like, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, yeah, but the whooping cough, like, whatevs. She said whatevs on the phone. And I was like, I'm about to start cursing because I almost cursed. I was like, are you kidding me? And then what they don't know is, my mother's like Michelle. Like, Michelle's very nice and my mother's very nice until you mess with her children. And I have a mother in another state and she's looking at TV. She's watching the news. And if you watch the news, everything is New York. New York sucks. Everybody's dying in New York. New York is just like being in an episode where everyone's attacked with zombies. Their bodies being stacked on each other. And my mother's watching that crap on television. So I was literally getting 5,000 phone calls and 4,500 of those calls was my mother checking in on me. And why wouldn't you, if your child was in the hospital under quarantine and has this virus that you see on television, you know? And my mother is relentless. She was going to show up to the hospital. I had to stop her from showing up to the hospital with the television crew because she was about to expose everybody and just really turn up in the hospital. And that's when I finally said, okay, you don't know what you're doing, so let me do what I do best. I prayed and God told me, let them kick you out. As a matter of fact, make the time earlier. I got my behind on Delta, grabbed a mask, took a good bath and cleansed myself, grabbed my card and went home to Georgia. I still have my apartment in New York City, but I went home to Georgia. And how I healed myself, saltines, ginger ale, SpongeBob SquarePants, Friends, relaxation, and not watching the news or listening to any type of BS from any other person. Because literally, my mindset would have thrown me out. I felt the moment I just started hearing, it's literally like if you're dating someone and you know that person's not right for you, they just caught you on a good day and they just bring you down. It could be a family member, they just bring you down. And you know, I gotta go. Follow that energy because that's how I felt every time Donald Trump opened his mouth or anytime I heard somebody with rhetoric. I was like, oh no, I can't listen to this. I hung up the phone in people's faces. I can't, because that was the difference between me getting better or me being in the hospital in an insane asylum and or dead. Because the moment I came back to UNIS, it literally hit my spirit that was my deathbed. Because there were many people that went through what I went through and they didn't survive because they didn't have a support system. They didn't take it seriously, you know? And you gotta protect your energy. Protecting my energy, prayer, thank God, you know, And my mother healed me. It was like she knew what coronavirus was. I came home instantly to chicken soup. Come on. Did I answer your question, Beatrice?
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When did you realize, or when did the doctors realize that the ibuprofen was poisonous? How did you know? Because you said they didn't find out for another month.
When they realized was when I came in the hospital, and they were like, "Hey," it was literally like being tracked on a sitcom. They were like, "Hey, so this guy's dying from this. This guy's dying. So maybe we should just." They were literally talking about this in front of me. They're like, "Well, maybe we should just." Since he almost died and all that stuff, and he had enough sense to admit himself in the hospital, maybe we should just give him antibiotics in a fruit cup. And then from there, they were like, "Do you want chicken fingers for dinner?" It was just, I was literally just sitting there, and I was like, I can hear you, right? And there was one instance where they tried to give me a Percocet. I told them my ear hurts. I was like, "Hey, my ear hurts. My ear hurts. I have an ear infection." And they tried to give me a Percocet, and I went to the nurse and I said, "What's this?" She said, "Oh, it's a Percocet. It's a 500 milligram Percocet." And I'm like, "Don't you give that to somebody when they come out of surgery?" So a Percocet is for what? I told her, if you don't give me some cough syrup and bring some ice cream and some ginger ale in this room and just leave me the hell, I was over it. But the doctors didn't know what they're doing. I had to be proactive. I had to be proactive and listen to what the doctors were saying, and then know the difference between a Percocet and cough syrup. Because literally some of the doctors were just on that BS, but thank God for good nurses. But it was like being on Rick and Morty. It was nothing different. I should just write this whole thing down, because it's funny now, but in the hospital, I was losing my mind, because I was like, I haven't pooped in 2 days and you guys are on this BS. Anyway, next question.
Did they make you trace your contacts and who you have been in contact?
They didn't have to do it, because since my friends are, again, I keep using Michelle as a reference. Since my friends are very caring and they won't leave me alone, they figured it out. And then once the New York Times article came out, I was in the New York Times, and they were like, an usher on Broadway who was on Virginia Woolf in that Six the Musical. And everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that's Peter." Then it spread like wildfire. I was the hottest gossip in town. It was pretty much like I had slept with the president. I had to run away from my phone, to the point where my phone is I still have to clean out my voicemail, because my phone is so full of voice messages just from people being nosy and in my business. And then when I made that viral video, that you could just forget about it. And then, but it flipped from my favor, because they tried to embarrass me and make it seem like I was intentionally infecting people, but it backfired. And then, again, falling on the sword for the school, because they wanted to know where I worked. And my instinct, thank God for good instincts, it said, "Do not tell them you work at an international school," because what you guys don't know is the week that I got sick, there was buzzing going around, because there was newspapers calling the school. There were newspapers calling United Nations International School to get a quote on what the school was doing in terms of the coronavirus, and people trying to break in our emails to see what we're doing here in the school. And I remember a teacher, a good friend of mine, she was supposed to go to a seminar that Friday, the Friday that I was really sick, and they canceled the seminar. They said, "These other teachers can come to the seminar, but you can't." And the teacher was like, "Why can't I come?" They go, "Because you work for an international school." And I was just like, are we in 2020 right now? What is happening? And then to have that, and then to call them to call them to get my results, and to hear that I have coronavirus, it felt like a nightmare. It felt like it was a nightmare, and I was just waiting for somebody to come out of come from under my bed going, "Smile, you're on Candy Camera." This is a joke. Next question. Anyone else, or are we good?
What sign are you?
Yeah, what sign are you?
Oh, I'm glad we got to that. That's another important thing to this. I am a Virgo. So if you know what Virgos are capable of, this is, I was losing, I'm trying to smile and be nice about this. I'm a Virgo going through this. I was losing my mind, and the fact that I couldn't clean or take a bath because I couldn't get out of the bed for like 3 days. I was missing a bath within 3 days. And I didn't brush my teeth for like a week because my hands were so weak, I couldn't lift my hands up. And for me, that's, or being able to talk on the phone, because I had certain supervisors that wanted to call me to see if I was sick. And I was literally talking for like, hello, I can't, with the whooping cough. As a Virgo, it was horrible. But again, because I'm perfect in every way, it worked out in my favor, as it does with the Virgo. September the 20th. Anybody else? Go ahead. I see Michelle's hand up.
So thank you for sharing your story. And I've had the pleasure of working with you on a few master classes and webinars and classes. And to hear you in every step each week, getting stronger and stronger, and you sound great. My question to you is, in the beginning, when the New York Times article and the Post article came out, it felt like you were under attack. Do you feel differently now? Do you feel that people's mindset has changed, that people are more accepting? Do you feel that there's a positivity that's coming out of this, or do you still feel that there's a lot of fear and a lot of phobia?
I do believe that there's still fear and phobias about this, but that's because there's certain people that are just ignorant and just don't want to listen to information. Because if you stay your butt inside your house and clean your hands and mind your business, you know what I'm saying? You won't get sick. It's just that simple. You stay inside your house and listen to these people and occupy your time, you won't get sick. And the beauty of it is it's making the good people lock and load on each other. So again, Michelle, I use you as my example. When I was in that masterclass with Scott Freeman, and he was just basically ministering to my spirit. And I said, it hit my spirit to offer myself to you, because I was like, I can make a difference within my own school. Like, I would not have ever offered that had this virus not happened. It's literally like, do we have any Disney fans in the room? Are there any Disney fans in the room at all? I feel like I'm in Aladdin, and I feel like I stepped on a magic carpet. And when he said, do you trust me? And it's like I'm literally grabbing God's hand, and it's like I'm in a whole new world, and I can't go back to where I used to be. Now that I know that I can see the world, and there's this whole new spectrum, and now that I've literally been to hell and back, oh no. But it's changing people for the better, because there are a lot of friends that or what I'm seeing around here is people that are not taking it anymore. They're actually calling out the truth, and it's making people wake up to realities. For example, I'll never forget, I was walking past the living room, grabbing ice cream again. And there was this lady on Wendy Williams, and I don't watch Wendy Williams, but somehow I was walking past, and you know how the TV's catching your attention. And there was this girl, she was like, I'm in quarantine. And she said, I'm in quarantine with my fiance. She says, I'm in quarantine with my fiance. And she goes, we're gonna have a problem. And Wendy was like, well, what's the problem? She goes, I don't want to be with him anymore. She goes, I'm in quarantine with him. And she goes, now I'm paying attention. She goes, because I wasn't paying attention before. Because she goes, there were drinks around. We were working. We always had different schedules, and we would see each other. It'd be an hour at a time. We'd be making up for lost time. But she goes, now that I'm sitting here with him, she goes, he's not really a good person. His jokes aren't funny. He's corny. He smells. He doesn't clean up after himself. He thinks that I should pick up after him. And she goes, and had we been here in this quarantine, I'd have done this. And she goes, and could you imagine if I'd have had children with this guy? She goes, and had this quarantine not happened, I would have never known this. And I think it sucks that the bodies are hitting the ground. It sucks that we have so much happening. It sucks that we have to be locked up. But again, you can see victory or victimization. You can see this as being bored or as a fortress of solitude, because there are people that are paying attention to things now because they're under quarantine. I have a student now who's learned that she's actually an artist. She was so busy trying to get her math and accounting together that she didn't even know she actually has skills in painting, and she's actually phenomenal at it. She said, but I never would have picked up the paints had I done this. I have another kid, a guy, he plays soccer, and he goes, I actually found out I can cook. So I started sending him DIYs with cooking, and actually he may be on the road to being a chef. So it's just so much, so much. I have kids developing video games now, and it's forced me to go in my classrooms with this mindset. I said, if I get up out of this hospital bed, I said, I'm coming in these classrooms with full force, which is why I'm dressed up as Captain America today. I'm getting these kids' attention, and they are not going to be negative. They're going to do this. They're going to reach their full potential. If there's a scholarship, you know, and I went to my T1s. I said, do you know Harvard gives out free courses online, and you can leave with a certificate for the course, and you can actually put on your applications that you took courses at Harvard. And I said, what's the difference between you and the privileged guy? What's the difference between you and the guys that are jerks that believe that they can do whatever they want when they want? It's confidence. And my confidence has went up to level 5,000. And I'm spreading that confidence like a disease to other people. And to whoever's in this room that's listening to this, this is your date with destiny. Don't doubt yourself. If you forget anything that I say, remember, prayer and meditation is what pulls you through a positive mindset. And the second thing is, I mean it from the bottom of my heart, if Donald Trump can be president, then you can do anything. I'll say that one more time for the person in the back who doesn't get it. If Donald Trump, with no experience whatsoever, you can't find it, who can't hold a press conference to save his life, who's rude and defensive, Michelle and Vera can probably hold a better press conference than him. And then there are apologetic people, non-apologetic, and his answer for when he's wrong is to call you nasty and to make you look bad. If he can be president of the United States of America and make $200,000 a year, then why can't you open your own Fortune 500 company? Why can't your hopes and dreams come true? The difference between you and the dummy in the room that's privileged is your mindset. Why can't you find the love of your life? Why can't you travel in the world and do whatever you want to do? I'm telling you, nobody within the sound of my voice is going to fail anymore. I'm relentless. You can fire me, say whatever you want, but I'll down this hill. All of my kids know better. Have 20/20 vision, have 20/20 focus, to the point where there was even one kid that was trying to go, oh, I'm bored. And I made the homework assignment on Schoology. You can, if you don't believe me, I'll send you a screenshot. And I listed his name. I said, make blank unbored. And the assignment was for everybody in the classroom to Zoom in to get in contact with him. I mean, come on. I'm not having the BS anymore. I'm not dealing with losers. I'm not dealing with anybody with that rhetoric that wants to be negative and wants to be evil. You will not thrive within my presence. I'm shutting it down. I almost died because of a pandemic. And then on top of that, this was a preventable disease. All it took was for people to wash their hands. Wash their hands and put their hands over their mouth and be considerate of other people. But unfortunately, because people are nasty jerks and they want to be greedy and make money, we are where we are, you know? And since we're here, since they show you that they don't care about you, you apply yourself and you get up like all the fairy tales that you heard. You be like Cinderella and get up, go to the ball. You be like Robin Hood and grab your bow and arrow and hit it. You know what I'm saying? The only difference between you and Donald Trump is confidence in the ability. And I hope that ability hits you from this conversation, if anything. Because if he can do it, then why can't you? That's my mantra for anything now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. M. I feel
Thank
like
you.
I sat through graduation right now, actually. I feel very inspired. And I think everyone else in this room does too.
Oh, thank you so much. And I actually have a surprise that I'm working on for you guys. I'm going to send it to Vera and Michelle, and then you could just spread it along to everyone in the room. I'm actually having my students work on a special surprise for you guys. I gotta get actually in my DMs with this phone and get on the guy that's supposed to be editing it, but you should have it by the end of the day. And I hope that you take this as a way of appreciation. But remember what I said. And if you ever have any questions about anything, or if you ever need someone to talk to, anyone in this room, that goes Michelle, Vera, everybody up in here. If you ever need inspiration, if you ever just need ideas you want to hash out, or if you ever need someone to talk to, my DMs are open. pmcintosh@unis.org, and I'll never turn you away. Slide in my DMs and let's talk. But if you fail, it's your choice. If you fail, it's your choice. Because of greed, because of nasty people, they forced a fork in the road. There is no in between anymore. You either going to be the victim or choose the victory. And I hope you choose the victory, because all of you have potential in here. You just got to clock in. Yeah.
I'm gonna unmute everyone. Does that work? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Oh no. Props for you. You guys are the heroes. You guys are the heroes. And I wish you great the rest of your 2020. And if anybody throws a prom, let me know. I'll come. I'll come.
Yeah, throw it now.
I'll go. So whoever's house or whoever's throwing it, and if you're gonna wait till the fall, let's do it in the fall, and let me know. I'll put some money down and I'll party with you guys. I'm down for the party. Let me know when you're ready. And I know a great DJ. All right.
Thank
Bye. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
guys. Have a great day. You be
Thank you.
blessed. Look out for my movie. See you, Vera. Thank you, Michelle. See you guys. Bye.